Before, I'm going to take this opportunity and call upon our next panelists who are going to talk about sustainability as a way of life. This panel is being moderated by the Joint Secretary Education Forum, SCSC, Padmapriya Chilakamarti, a communication professional with over 15 years of experience in the media, television, and advertising industries. Priya is the Chief of Staff at Cognizant. Before her current role, she was with NASSCOM leading the Diversity and Inclusion Initiative regionally. She's very passionate about issues about women. She has been associated with SCSC Women's Forum since it was constituted and is a trained Margadarsha. We also saw that she has been championing the Education Forum for SCSC. Welcome, Priya. Introducing our first panelist, Mr. Swaraj Priyadarshi, Chief of Staff for Dexterity Global. During his stint as a second-in-command at Dexterity, the organization has reached more than 7 million students. Its graduates and fellows have received more than 114 crores, which is almost 1.4 billion in scholarship. The organization has been listed on Forbes 30 Under 30 and Rockefeller 100 Next Century Innovations list and invited to the White House and the Nobel Peace Prize ceremony. Last year, Swaraj was recognized as the 2022 Outstanding Educator of the Year by the University of Chicago. He is the youngest recipient of the award in its history. Welcome, Swaraj. Maybe request you to come on. Our next panelist is Elca Grobler, founder by My Choices Foundation. Elca is a champion for the rights of women and girls. At My Choices Foundation, Elca and her team strive to give women and girls choice to live free from abuse and sexual exploitation. Choice is a simple word with a deep and powerful meaning, absolutely. It can inspire us, build us, lead us, as well as destroy us. The most vital power and fundamental thing anyone should have in life is the ability to choose. The mission of My Choices Foundation is to give women, children, and families choices to live free from abuse, violence, and sexual exploitation. Welcome, ma'am.
So, Elca and Swaraj, thank you so very much for joining us here. You've seen the entire, what's been happening so far. I'm sure you've been enjoying. Typically, all panel discussions have a rapid fire at the end, right? So let's do something a little different. Let's start with the rapid fire, just to warm you up, warm everybody up. Okay, so I'll just ask you just only 3 words. Tell me what strikes you the best, the first thing that comes onto your mind. Sustainability, Elca?
Sustainability can only happen through partnerships. And sustainability can happen when we actually empower women to become the change agents. Without empowering them, equipping them, educating them, it was always going to be a top-down approach. We believe sustainability is a bottom-up approach. We believe in partnerships, women, and as important, we believe in the power of men to make sustainability come true.
Awesome. I love that. Swaraj, what about you? Sustainability.
Thank you for having me here first. I was sitting here for the last 2 hours and I feel what we have shown here through the Telangana police, through the SCSC, it is truly exemplary how the police as an administration is not just working for law enforcement, but it is acting as an education organization, it is acting as a support organization, and all of you who are working together as community to do this. Coming back to your question, I think sustainability is care. It is a pity that the whole conversation of sustainability has found its meaning, only very, very recently, whereas we can never grow at the cost of future generations. We can never grow at the cost of other people. It always had to be sustainable. So it's a pity that sustainability has found its place in the discourse quite late. But I think truly at the core of sustainability lies care. Do we care enough for people who will come after us? Do we care enough about people who may be left behind because of our own actions? And do we care about not just leaving a good planet for future generations, but also leaving good generations for the future?
Awesome. Sustainability is all about care. What about life?
I just want to say I'm honored to share the stage with you, Swaraj. I'd say thank you for being here with you. Life, for us at My Choices Foundation, we strive to give women and girls choices to live life free from abuse and sexual exploitation. So if you ask me about the word life, that's immediately what comes for me up to mind, is how can we give choices to those that don't have choices? How can we speak up for those who can't speak up for themselves? We know that our choices determine our life. And most of us in this room would have the privilege of having choices. But there are so many that don't have those choices. The girl that's forced to get married at 15, the girl that gets sold off when she's 12 years old, the woman who's in a domestic violence, abusive relationship for 18 years with no choice. So for me, life is choice and choice is life.
Awesome. In fact, that's something which even Dr. Guru Reddy also spoke about, right? How a choice will bring about a change in life. Swaraj, what about you? Life?
I'll give a short answer to this. I mean, life is what you'll make of it. I don't want to get into the details, but yeah, I mean, it is about enabling everyone. If I have to draw it to the theme that we have for today, I think it is about largely enabling everyone, giving everyone an equal opportunity to build their own. I think that is what life should be.
Absolutely. With you. Balance.
Balance, yes. The one thing I so appreciated Dr. Reddy's talk, and I'm going to ask somebody that we can get access to that, when he said that the fastest person over 191 miles is a female, I thought, goodness, if she can run that far, you know, then all of us can do our best.
Absolutely.
And in terms of balance, I think just the audience, we thank the men that's in the audience. Without the balance between male and female and gender, we're not going to win this fight against domestic violence and gender-based violence. So balance is bringing everybody forward. The theme for International Women's Day was equity. Equality is getting people on the same equal opportunities. Equity is realizing that there are people that's completely on the margins. And so for me, balance is equality and equity and bringing everybody to a space and where there's opportunity and balance. And thank you to the men in the audience. We salute you.
Thank you. There is a question to the audience as well. May I request everybody to be kindly seated? But let me get back to you, Swaraj.
Thank you. I think I have a lot to say on balance because at Dexterity, the organization that I serve, we teach young kids balance a lot. And we use the word duality and we talk about the ability to balance seemingly opposite ideas often makes you wise and makes you go a long way. For instance, we have something called the non-negotiables at the organization, which every kid in the organization must adhere to and must live by. And the moment you do not do something, somebody, either your mentors or other fellows, other students, will tell you, hey, that's not how we do it here. That's not how we run it. This is not part of our, this is part of our non-negotiable. You cannot do it. So what's that duality? For instance, we say, be the same person on your best day and on your worst day. We say that know that you're changing the world and know that you're not changing the world. We say that in all the significance of the world, know your futility, and in all the futility of the world, know your significance. A lot of times we can think that the work that we are doing doesn't matter even if we not do it. On that day, we remind ourselves of maybe one child, one person, one parent who's better off because we were there. And that gives us the courage and that gives us the motivation to continue doing. And on many days, you can think that you're the center of the world, you're running the show, and who else is there? On those days, you have to think of many, many people in this country, on this planet, who are still, you know, thinking about the next meal on the dining table, who are still thinking about how's the next week going to look like, where's the paycheck going to come from. And that keeps you humble, that keeps you grounded. So I think balance is extremely important for long-term growth, for resilience, and for keeping yourself sane. So that is something
I
that
guess
we
these
often
3 words were very loaded because a lot of things actually came onto your mind when I asked you these. Okay, a question to the entire audience. Since Swaraj was talking about world, the balance, the world that we are living today, if you want to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best place to live in, how would you all rate it? Anybody? 2? All right, 4? How would you rate? 5, 10? 5. I love this. While yes, a couple of you have actually said 10, which means this is the perfect place to live in without any challenges, then why should we be here, right? Jokes apart. Okay, so the first question, a real serious discussion, Elca. I know, in fact, all the speakers were talking about how this whole world is panning out at this moment, the violence that is there. Every human being definitely deserves a world that is free of violence, right? And in order to ensure the balanced society, in fact, they must be wondering why I was actually asking you sustainability, life and balance. That's what I was actually trying to drive at. In order to have a balance in the world, we need to really work hard, right? However, the estimates by the World Health Organization actually says 1 in every 3 women worldwide is facing domestic violence. Your organization, Elca, has been doing a wonderful job, My Choice Foundation. In fact, My Choice Foundation is a partner where our Margadarshak and Sangamitra programs, the My Choice Foundation team has been empowering our Margadashaks and Sangamitras. So why did you decide to work on this particular issue, Elca?
Thank you so much for the question. Unfortunately, and I know it's not always nice to hear, but as you were saying, globally, 1 in 3 women face abuse. And as we heard earlier, that India is in the top 10 countries in terms of the severity and the frequency of abuse. And I don't want to dwell on more numbers, but 49% of poor or married women in poor households face domestic violence. We know that there's 50 million girls missing in India because of feticide. And the thing, if you talk about the women and look at the statistics, 2 out of 3 of these women will not seek for help. So you have on the one side the abuse that's happening or the violence. On the other side, you have one of the most progressive laws in the world, which is the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act that India brought out in 2005. But then in the middle, you have this gap. The women don't have access to the law and the protection and the rights. They don't know about it. And so when we started, our organization is now 11 years old, and when we started working in the communities, we sat down with the women and the girls and we asked them, what do you wish for? Like, what, if you can make a choice, what is it that you want? And yes, of course, financial freedom is very important, but these women told us that if you get beaten up at home, or if you're not allowed to go to work, or if you get raped by a relative, you don't have freedom. And unless we can get to a point where we live a life free from abuse, there is no freedom. And so it was really driven by the communities, by the women, spending a lot of time with them, that we realized that unless we equip the women in the community, and we call them peacemakers, so they are these beautiful, strong women that we train from the community to become the change agent in the community. Because domestic violence and abuse and even sex trafficking is such a private issue, people don't want to address it. We realized that the only way we can do it is if we come from the inside. And that's how My Choices Foundation was started, by listening to the women and then equipping them, empowering them, educating them to become the change agents.
Amazing, yeah. So as you said, in fact, Albert Einstein said, women's freedom means social freedom, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So what kind of awareness is actually required? What is it that we need to do to mitigate this violence that is there? While, yes, as the SCSC, we've been doing so many things, we're trying to create the whole awareness, but I'm sure it has to go to the next level. What should those be?
So we at My Choices Foundation work both with domestic violence and the awareness of sex trafficking. But to come back to your question around awareness, we have a 4-pillar approach. So the first one is actually prevention through awareness. And what's very important there is that we work across all the segments, specifically with school children, colleges, women, and men. So we've reached over 300,000 women, girls, men, school children. We work across 10 states in India. And again, we work with everybody. We don't exclude men. I think as an organization, we work with, what we call as the good fathers, the informed mothers, the guardian girls, and the cool boys. And we do awareness across all of them with a message for all of them. But as an organization, we realized you can't just do awareness, because what happens now if you've made somebody aware, but now actually you need to do intervention. So we go from prevention to intervention. So we have what we call counseling or crisis centers all across Hyderabad and in 10 states across India. And that's where we give the women the support. So that's where the counseling happens. That's where the legal support happens. You can't just help someone to know about the problem, but then you don't actually help them address the problem. And then the third one is we give them access to safe homes, to rights. But our fourth pillar, which we're really proud of, is to make men allies. So none of our counseling happens. No session can be finished or completed without including the abuser in the counseling. And we have what we call sort of a 98% success ratio. What means is in 98% of the cases, and we've done over 15,000 cases, we've been able to resolve the issue and bring the men on board. So for us, it's not just prevention, it's prevention, intervention, legal support, protection, and making men our allies.
So you actually spoke about what your organization has been doing it, but what is required on the social front? Should men change? Should there be a change in the mindset, or should women become more empowered?
Yes. It's a tricky question, and we won't all be here if there was, an easy answer to it. I think for us, it's just organizations need to work together. You can't just have social organizations or NGOs. You need the police, you need the government. One of the things that we are extremely grateful for and proud of is the fact that we have such a good relationship with the police. And gender norms are something that needs to be addressed right from the school age, right from when the kids go to school. I think, and I want to make it actually simple, is I think what's really important to note is that giving somebody equal rights to women does not take away the rights from men. I think we struggle with that sometimes, that you feel, oh, okay, but if it's about equal rights, what happens to giving somebody equal rights does not mean you take away rights from somebody else. And then I just want to use a story as an example, rather than go into, I know Swaraj will probably speak on that as well, is our peacemakers, who are the local agents in the community. Initially, we were almost told that you're not going to be able to make this model work. You're not going to be able to get women from the community to stand up and speak up and become these change agents. But what we found over time is that when it's a case late at night, or it's a very severe case, and our peacemakers go out in the community, their husbands have started going with them. Husbands who previously might have been in that abusive relationship have seen what it means if there's peace in the home, have seen what it means if there's no abuse in the house. And for me, if you say, how are we going to bring about this change? Again, it's going to become from a community side, including the husbands, including the boys. I just want to say one last thing, that a boy who grows up in an abusive home is 5 times more likely to perpetuate that abuse. So if you say, how are we going to change the gender norms? It starts with making homes abuse-free, and start in the schools and talking about gender norms and gender equality. And as I said, giving somebody rights does not mean you take the rights away from somebody else.
Absolutely. So you're talking about actually initiating the education itself. On the topic for education, Swaraj, Dexterity Global has been doing such tremendous work. I'm aware of it because I've actually read about it. But would you want to speak about it?
Thank you. I would actually give you a quick background of my journey within Dexterity. I was 10 years old when I came in contact with the founder, Sharat Sagar. He comes from my hometown of Patna, who actually DGP sir is He went to schooling in Patna, so that was good to know. I was 10 when I came in contact with the founder. I was 12 when I won at a local talent identification program that was run by Dexterity. I was 15 when I graduated from its leadership development program. I was 17 when I went to Tufts University in the United States on a full scholarship as part of it, as a Dexterity to College fellow. And I was 21 when I graduated. I was one of the 3 seniors in the United States to win the prestigious Samuel Huntington Public Service Award, and I came back the next day of my graduation to come back and work here in India with children and youth and continue the work that I was doing with Dexterity as a high school student, as a middle school student, working alongside my founder. And why do I say that? Because everybody who works at Dexterity, except for the founder, is a graduate of the organization. From the second in command to everyone, all the volunteers, all the kids, they come back, they serve. That is how Dexterity works. But Dexterity works on one core mission. It is to enable this young generation, a generation of young leaders, to be able to connect their classroom education with national leadership. The biggest disservice that we can do to this country is we are sending our students to school, we are sending our students to college without ever asking why do we send them to school and why do we send them to college? Is it just for the livelihood? Do we send our kids to school so that they can go to a good college? Do we send them to a good college so that they can go get a good job and they can get a good life? Or is there something that we are missing? Why, as humankind, we decided that the moment kids hit a certain age, we'll send them to school and college? And the simple answer to that is to be able to help them and give them the opportunities and give them the exposure so that they can do something for their country and they can do something for their world. If you look and trace the journey of some of our nation builders and what they were doing when they were in school and college, Mahatma Gandhi, South Africa connection. Mahatma Gandhi, he went to University College London, studied law, comes back South Africa to India. He's able to use all that he's learning towards what he believed in. Sardar Patel went to Middle Temple College in London, comes back, works on things that I don't need to get into. Verghese Kurian was a graduate of Michigan State University. He, in 1948, left the United States to come back to India, goes to a sleepy town of Anand in Gujarat, and for the next 5 and 6 decades works on something called the billion liter idea and heralds the white revolution in this country. Leaves. Several decades later, India becomes the largest exporter of milk in the world, leaving behind the same United States which he had left back in the day as a student. Vikram Sarabhai graduates from University of Cambridge, comes back and says and works with several prime ministers to several ministers and in the government to build India's space program when only Soviet Russia and the United States were dominating space. So what is common between all of them? They were all able to use their education towards nation building. And that is what we are hoping to do at Dexterity, which is power the next generation of leaders, connect them to educational opportunities, whatever field they may be interested in, and enable them to become nation builders, pioneers, change makers across different fields.
That's much required. Mark my words, definitely yes. Tell me, the statistics also say that, the kind of opportunities that a girl has where education is concerned. In fact, a girl capable of writing, the number of girls is much lesser as compared to the opportunities that a boy gets towards education. So is there any difference that you are perceiving? How is it that you are handling it within Dexterity Global?
That is very interesting because I do have a different story to tell you today. In 2013, when we had our leadership development program running, this is India's first school of leadership and entrepreneurship for young people, for teenagers, long before the Digital India or the Startup India, everything came into being. And the female enrollment rate at our leadership development program in 2012-2013 was at 10%. Today I am very proud and happy to report to you that it is at 65%. And it is not because of any quota in place. It is surely based on merit, and it is based on this one idea that we have been able to work on, the idea of creating local role models. What do we mean by local role models? When we say local role models, we mean that when you hear about a Sarojini Naidu, when you hear about other leaders, when you're reading about them, you either, when you think of a Kalam, when you hear of a Sachin Tendulkar, you either read about them in newspapers, you read about them in history books, general knowledge books, you see them on television. These role models seem very, very far-fetched to you. To a young girl in some part of Telangana, in a rural district, these role models seem, okay, they did it, I can never do it. When you have a local role model, when somebody from your district, somebody from your school, somebody from your village, they did something, that inspires you that you can also do it. This is an idea that Dexterity has been working on, and that is what has changed the game. In December of 2021, a young girl from the district of Erode in Tamil Nadu was accepted on a full scholarship worth 3 crore rupees to the University of Chicago in the United States. That girl had never ever taken even a train outside of her district. And she took a 20-hour flight to University of Chicago on a full scholarship worth 3 crores. There are so many examples like that that we have been able to, sort of play a role in. And that has changed the game for us when it comes to female enrollment, bringing, leading, creating dexterity women and, creating leaders from women. And the conversation at the organization has truly shifted from women empowerment to women-led development. 3 years ago, we sent 3 young women who had just graduated college, top institutions in the country, to do public service fellowships across India. One went to work in the field of education in the rural districts of Jharkhand. One went in Karnataka to work in education, and one who was from the state of Assam, she was working in Maharashtra and Karnataka in livelihoods in very, very remote districts. This year, they're all going to top graduate schools and choosing between institutions like Harvard and Cambridge and whatnot. Now that changes the game for you when you see that women are going out, leading change, doing well, and there's no stopping them. For too long, we have, the problems for women are too much and for our girls are too much. And sometimes as men, as male, we never even can imagine, we can never even realize it. If you're able to change those problems, if you're able to sort of bridge those gaps, you'll be able to truly uncover the potential of all our people. Because let's say as a society, if we are not using women, we are not using 50% of the potential that we have. So
you're talking about women's potential. You
and
also
maybe a little more too.
Absolutely. So you spoke about women potential. You also referred to a case from Erode, but simultaneously you're also talking about the high-end educational institutions. But what about absolute rural areas? You're from Patna, Bihar, right? And the typical, I would say, probably it could be a misconception as well, that the youth in the rural areas are more bent towards crime, right? So is Dexterity Global doing any job, anything around the whole thing of, empowering those youth, making a change, bringing about leaders from them?
I think that is very interesting because the problems in challenging demographics get even more challenging and complex because there are so many problems that come together, which often, sitting in boardrooms or sitting in, if you're not directly hands-on working on these problems and working with these communities, it's very difficult for you to comprehend the kinds of problems that we have. Last year, this media story was viral, almost viral across the country, when a young boy from a village in Bihar was accepted to a top college in the United States in Pennsylvania on a full scholarship. The government of Bihar created a community called the Mahadalits, which were the most, the most disadvantaged groups in the state. And he happens to be the first student from the Mahadalit community to go to a top institution on a full scholarship worth 2.5 crores to study engineering. Now, when that student got accepted, that was a miracle. It was a miracle for all of us. And the biggest issue was not for him to get accepted to college. The biggest issue was getting him a passport. Now that is a challenge. He did not have a passport. He did not have the documents in place. My teammates, my full-timers, we did all that we can, rang all possible officers that we knew and got the support and did everything that we could to get him documents and, make sure that all documents are in order and he gets a passport. Now, that is the kind of challenge that it often does not meet our eye. We fail to realize the kinds of challenges that are there. A lot of times working with, young women and just in general, very, very challenging demographics. Let's say a student gets into a college, then it's very difficult for parents to comprehend what it is and what it can mean. That it will be a full scholarship, the life has taken off, the generation has taken off. So there are challenges around that. This one time I had a kid who was still, who got accepted to a top institution in India on a full scholarship, but he still had 3 months left to go to college, and every day he would be still working as a child laborer and doing, working at a construction site and, loading and unloading bricks. So those are challenges, those are realities. A lot of times you have to work with them and make sure that you do what you can with what you have.
Absolutely. And the kind of work that you both are doing, I mean, it's amazing, but then sustainability is the key. So Elca, you have actually built such a wonderful organization. You have a wonderful team supporting you. But then how do you sustain these efforts as we go forward for the generations to come?
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge, Swaraj, what you were saying is that there's a proverb that says, women hold up half the sky. And I think, so if you've got a 64% ratio of female students, it is so beautiful and so precious. I think
I'll just interrupt. And we are thinking, where are the boys now? That is a problem that we have at the organization at this point in time.
Yes, but women do hold up half the sky, and we so dearly believe in them. And so you were asking, Padmapriya, about sustainability. I think for us there are two main pillars or factors. There's a quote by Melinda Gates that says that sometimes all we need to lift women up is not to pull them down, and we've seen that. So one of our forms of sustainability is give the choice, the power, the rights into the hands of the women. We cannot do this top down. As an NGO, we cannot go, as I said, we work in 10 states across India. The only way it is sustainable is if we give the choices and the empowerment and the equipment and the tools into the hands of women. That's why we train women, we train local agents, we empower them, we equip them, we do capacity building sessions with them. We have a lot of online technology, how we keep on empowering them. But the power sits with those women. So that's the one form of sustainability, is we don't hold on to anything. We release everything into the hands of the women and the girls through our school programs, our college programs, our basti meetings. Then the second pillar for us of sustainability is, and that's why we're so honored to be sharing the stage here, is our partnership with the police. As you know, we as an organization, we are so closely working with the police in terms of training of the Maktrashaks, the Sangha Mitras, being involved with Barossa, being involved with the SHE teams. When the Dal 100 project was brought in, My Choices Foundation was asked to train the councillors, and we still have support for that. We work with, in Hyderabad, we are the provider of all the trainings for the anti-human trafficking units. We've trained all the staff at the Saki centers. So it's through this very close partnership. NGO can't work in isolation. And it's through forging these partnerships, and we want to thank the police for working so closely with us and actually giving us the opportunity to use the skills that we have built up, which is prevention and intervention and men as allies, to work alongside the police. So if I just have to recap that, give the power to the women, equip them, empower them, educate them. They are stronger than you think. We've just heard they can run 191 miles fastest in the world. They're strong, they're really strong. Just don't pull them down, they'll lift themselves up. And working in partnership with the police for us is how we are sustainable.
Absolutely, more power to the women, right? So what about you, Swaraj? You've been doing such wonderful job, right? What were the generations to come? How do you plan to sustain this model or probably even evolve it further?
I think the work that we do at Dexterity is, we always see this as generational work. The impact is something that you can never trace in a few years or even in a few months, never. In a few years, maybe a little. But it's only after decades that you can see the impact. Education is a space like that where you only see the impact in generations. So I think the biggest factor in sustaining the work is the concept of local role modeling that we are working on, where maybe there is a child somewhere in some part of India who's inspired by these incredibly inspiring stories of Dexters and we don't even know, right? So that is how you pass on the baton. That is how it goes on from one to the other, and it goes on, passes on from one generation to the other. This is something we have a huge focus on. We often say that life is a relay race. You have to do your job and then you have to pass it on to the next generation. You have to pass it on to the next person. You have to pass it on to the next set of organizations to do it. So yeah, that is how we work. In terms of, women, I think the example that comes to my mind is Marie Curie. Marie Curie, there are only 4 individuals on this planet who have won a Nobel Prize more than once. And Marie Curie happens to be one of them. And she happens to be the only individual, and I repeat, not a woman, the only individual who has done it across 2 different fields of sciences. When Marie Curie was studying, women were almost banned to study, and she was studying in something called, these hidden universities that she and some of her teachers had created. Now, we have an opportunity to be proud of it, but we also have to see that our women or certain sections of societies, are they growing because of systems that we have in place or despite them? And I believe, and as an organization, we believe that we should take a lot of pride in that. We should actually pity ourselves that why is it that there are some incredibly inspiring stories of women and people in general who have had to undergo so much of hardship to do what maybe somebody else didn't have to go through, all of that. How will you unlock their potential when they're busy navigating circumstances like these where you're not only helping them unleash their full potential? So yeah.
So you're talking about the potential part of it, but what about the stakeholders? Involvement of the stakeholders is very critical, right?
Yeah. I think this program is a great example of stakeholders coming together. I think I am incredibly inspired. I leave this place incredibly inspired by how the IT professionals and the government, our policemen and women, the governance, everybody is, coming together to do something. So yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. So when all the stakeholders come together, that is when we actually have balance. And that is what it is, sustainability for life, right? So I guess I heard the bell, I heard, saw this sign as well. So which means no time for any Q&A, but then Elca is here, My Choice Foundation team is here, and Swaraj also. You can always reach out to them for more information.
About to say that.
Sorry?
I saw you and I was about to say that.
No, I'm so sorry about this. I know these are the conversations which can continue, and these are very insightful, and thank you for the meaningful conversation. But due to paucity of time, I'm
yeah, but it was very insightful, wonderful talking to you both, wonderful connecting with you both since the past 1 week. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, may I request Mr. Praveen Polavaram, Treasurer SCSC, to please come on stage.
Thank you so much.
Felicitate the speakers.